All right. Good. Should I say afternoon? Should I say evening? I have absolutely no idea. I know this is a global event, so everyone's connected from different parts of the world. It's 6 p.m. here in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, where I currently find myself. I don't live here, but I sort of found myself here. And I don't know what time it is. So I think it's 7 p.m. in Slovo, Port Elizabeth in South Africa, where Zuki and Yamzo are. Ishmael lives on the other side of the world, so I don't know what time it is. But on this panel, you're very welcome to the Narrative 4 Summer of Impact. This is the second major activity. It doesn't mean the rest of the activities aren't important, but this is one that sort of excites me a lot. Not the least because it sort of covers my immediate constituency, which is Africa. My name is Buchi Onyebule. I am the beer drinking, gin and tonic totting head of African operations for Narrative 4. And on this panel with me to talk about Slovo and Empathy into Action program, I'm pretty sure many of you already know Ishmael Beah, who I'm proud to say is my friend and brother. And then there's Babawa Tatiana, who I've only recently met, and I'm really crossed that I didn't meet her a long time ago. And then there's two of my favorite people on the continent and perhaps in the world, Zukiswa Allah, as well as Yom Kelavayo. Hello people, welcome. So this promises to be very, very interesting event today. But before we go into anything, I'd like to have Ishmael, sort of get into the conversation. I don't think I need to introduce who Ishmael is, but I still love to hear him talk about it. And also to say how sort of Narrative 4 comes in. So Ishmael is going to tell us about Narrative 4, especially as he's a founding member of the organization and a writer of international repute, and someone for whom I'm a very big fan of. Read all 3 books of his, and I'm very excited about him. Hello, Ishmael. Welcome.
Thank you, Buchi, and thank you to the other panelists and to all of you for joining us. I am in the Los Angeles area, so it is about 10 a.m. for me, I believe. So, but these days we're all at home. You can make it whatever time you want or day you want, So I've chosen to today's Narrative 4 day for me. So there we have it. What I'm going to do is perhaps as a welcome to some of you who may not know who we are, or to some of you who already know who we are. It's just a very brief overview of what this organization is and how Buchi came to be part of it, and then read a little bit from Little Family, which I think it's kind of sets the stage for the conversation that we will have today. Particularly in line with the theme of this Summer of Impacts that we're talking about. Years ago, a bunch of artists, including Lisa, the head of Narrative 4 right now, globally, were in Aspen, Colorado, where this idea started. We started discussing that us as artists, as writers, or as musicians, or any kind of artists, we borrow from the world through our imagination, through our observation. But what do we give back? How do we make sure that we are not the only ones writing stories, because there are other important stories, but how do we build empathy in people through stories, which is a model we thought would be very effective. So we started that discussion, and that led to the formation of Narrative 4, which is really an artist, educators, and students-led organization that uses story not only to build empathy, but to equip people to be effective members of the communities and positive contributors to society. And how we do that is first with a very, seems simple outwardly, but with a very old age methodology of exchanging stories. And what that does to you, if I tell you my story, it allows you to walk in my shoes. It allows you to understand me, perhaps beyond your stereotypical view of me, beyond your preconceived ideas of who I am, to meet me in my own best possible manner, my own best possible spirit, my own way, my own place. So I own my experience, but allow you into it as well. We've run these models over and over again. Teachers and educators have been using it, and we've seen how effective it is. We ran a test years back in Colorado, for example. I was on the stage with a survivor of the genocide from Rwanda, and we told each other the story in front of people, and then we had to go back and come and retell the story, and you'll be very surprised how much, when I was retelling the story, I even began to sound like him. One of the tools that this, for me, that's really incredible, that is part of how I grew up, is the idea that when you exchange stories orally, you command the listening attention of somebody. We live in a world now where people are distracted by so many other things, but when somebody gives you their story and you listen deeply, you are able to hear them, which is something we're missing these days. Sometimes we all talk a lot and we don't really take the time to listen. So we have honed this methodology to be able to impact the world, and we've expanded globally, and the African continent is another place that we are working now. Now, how that came to be, first, it was already in South Africa, but I was living in Nigeria, and Buchi, who was speaking there, had Abuja literary gathering that they do, and I was looking for some place that I can go to hear young people what they're thinking and feeling in Nigeria. And I saw him sort of moderate a very boisterous crowd and passionate and energized crowd. If you've ever been in the midst of Nigerians, they are the most passionate and often very difficult to to have a conversation with, because everybody has a very strong opinion about everything. And I watched how skillfully Buchi was able to get everybody to listen to each other while facilitating this conversation. And immediately I called Lisa and I said, Lisa, I think I found somebody on the African continent who's going to be very useful to Narrative 4. Lisa agreed to have a call with us, and Buchi and I met at our favorite bar, as we'd already become friends, through drinking Star Beer, I believe it was. We Skyped Lisa, and the rest is history. So he's the head of Africa operations now. And well, one last thing I will say before I read is this. The power of this organization, it's very relevant in my life, for example, and which is why I wanted to be part of it. I came out of a very difficult country in Sierra Leone at the time, and I moved to the United States. So I was adopted in a family, and I realized that there was nobody telling my story. And the people who were telling my story did not understand necessarily what that story was, because they have not met somebody like me. And I decided to take charge of that, to bring the necessary human context to my story and to my people in Sierra Leone. And for me, this is the founding sort of value of Narrative 4, the idea that we allow people and we give people the platform to own their own stories, and hence to believe their own capabilities to make change in their own communities in their own way, because they know them better than anybody else. So with that said, I'm going to read just a little bit from Little Family, which is my latest novel. And it's about 5 characters who are young people who have decided to ostracize themselves from society to find freedom the way they want. And so they do things their own way, but yet they have the burden of history and the burden of the place they live. And so I'm just going to read a little bit from chapter 2 from one of the characters, Kudimata, who is a young woman and the main character of this book. So this is the, usually Kudimata made her visits to the market between dawn and the first appearance of the sun. There was a pause that came at this hour, a sigh, when the waking had to decide whether to spend their day being useful or being destructive. Raffia bag slung over her shoulder, beanie on her head, this bright-eyed young woman of 18 with smooth, sharp cheekbones chose to remain suspended between the two as the circumstances dictated. Besides, she was drawn to the hidden beauty of this dilapidated place, which painted over whatever bad memories troubled her mind with the simple and intriguing brushstrokes of all that was on display. She glided among the traders, listening and watching as they called out to the passers-by, letting them know what they wanted, what was essential for them to purchase. Madame, I have a special gift for your lovely daughter. Or Mister, Don't you want to go home with a gift that says what doesn't exist in words? I have just that for you. The merchants had sweet words for almost everyone, but when Kudimata passed before them, they said nothing. It was as if she did not exist. She was not invisible. People's eyes caught sight of her, but somehow she was forgotten as soon as she was glimpsed. Kudi did not mind. Because of her invisibility, people spoke honestly around her about their fears, hopes, and dreams. Sometimes she picked up information that way, information that made it possible to continue to live at the edge of the lives of such people. Some mornings, she simply lingered upon their faces, living in the emotions that they wore. Some exceptionally happy, some pensive, some unthinkably sad. Imagine their lives help her to stay suspended between being useful and being destructive while turning to her advantage everything that happened. Now she watched as a fruit seller juggled a pinkish red mango, a yellow pawpaw, a green guava in the air before setting them on the platter as colorful as a flowered roll. Kudi took in the glistening red of the palm oil being poured into bottles, the deep green of the cassava and sweet potato leaves that were constantly sprinkled with water so they didn't lose their freshness to the sun, the shiny dark hand that sprinkled the water, the head wraps of the women so casual yet so elegant, the blue river nearby, the pink sand on its banks. She never tired of the pleasures of letting herself get swept away by such sights, delighted that their delight never grew stale. How could you not find in them some tolerance for whatever life threw at you? So this, so this I believe is a segue into giving Buchi, because what we're going to speak about today really gives you, brings you into a place where the people who know it may not think of it as dilapidated because it's their home, even though that may be your first impression. I've always tried to open a small window in my writing to these sort of places so people understand that intelligence is universal. The only thing that are missing are opportunities. So even in the most seemingly dilapidated place, you'll find remarkable individuals, and I turn it over to Buchi so we can discover that.
Thank you very much, Ishmael. Thank you. I could actually see Lisa adding the part about the soccer, about when we first met, which is interesting. I think the way Ishmael and I met sort of reconfirms the entire idea of his book and what it is Narrative 4 does. I knew Ishmael before I'd met him because I read A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier, and my heart broke literally for him. And then when I met him, and I was like, oh wait, this is the guy who was heartbroken. In fact, sitting next to me is someone who actually had read the book with me, and we had a conversation on radio on it. So it was very interesting meeting Ishmael and putting a face and a person to the story that I had read. And it's why from then on I've sort of fallen in love with him, and he's my brother. So thank you very much, Ishmael. Now in January, Lisa Consiglio, who's our CEO, and we took a jaunt to South Africa from Joburg to Cape Town, and then we went to Port Elizabeth and went to Slovo. So it was not the first time I was hearing about Slovo. I'd met Zukiswa in Namibia in 2018, and she told me about her community. We talked. Interestingly, almost also over drinks, much like Ishmael. I don't know why a lot of things I do sort of happen over drinks. But yeah, we talked about her community in Slovo in Port Elizabeth. And I think it would be very important for her to sort of tell us about Slovo, what the situation is there, and how it's sort of, the passion that it gives her to get to do this work that we want to do. Hi, Zuki, over to you.
Hi, Buchi. Thank you so much. Greetings and thank you. Hello, everyone, and starting forward, I'm Zukiswa Ala. I'm a mom of 4. I live in Slovo, in Kandla to be precisely. Slovo is situated in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape of Southern Africa. So the situation of our community here in Slovo, I wouldn't say it's unique to any other situation of any other Black community that is underprivileged anywhere else in the world. You can go to Cape Town, you will find community like ours. but then I will try and highlight a few pointers. Like majority of our community members, adults, they are unemployed, they're uneducated. And as for the youth as well are dropping out of school. And those that continue with schooling, they do so, but they struggle through it. They have to push and try 7 times harder than other kids that come from different communities than ours. And this is not caused, if you are asking yourself what's wrong with the people from this community, that they are unemployed and they are not, they're dropping out of school. This is caused by the effects of apartheid that it has on us, and it had and it continues to have on us. There is no fair ground to play, so the opportunities are not the same, and regardless of that, people still wake up in the morning and they try, you know, to make ends meet, to bring better change for themselves and the community at large. So I was really honored when I was approached by Narrative 4, because how I met Narrative 4, it was through a program that I worked for, which works with the youth of the community. So I've always been somebody who's passionate about the community that I live in, and always asked myself questions like, what is it that I can do to change the situation for the better? And what is it that I have that perhaps when I meet someone else that they can add on that? And Narrative 4 met us as Joe Slovo community halfway in that light, that they approached us and we were asked if we had an idea, if you were to be asked of an idea that you could use to change the situation of your community for the better or to contribute, what would that be? And that is when we came up with the great idea of the Treasure to Treasure project.
Yeah, and so I think at this point, I'll sort of talk about my experience in Slovo. So Lisa and I landed at the Port Elizabeth airport, and immediately taken to the community. And where it's easy for everyone who's watching the videos now to sort of see desolation and, you know, any of these words that have become buzzwords to describe my continent. What is, you know, obtainable there? Because I mean, I'm Nigerian, but it's not much better in my country as well. What struck me the most was that resilience that I sort of identified in Slovo. I saw young people, older people who, recognizing the states that they found themselves, decided, well, we were going to make something out of the situation. We're going to sort of create something. We're going to create a spirit out of where we find ourselves. It's the resilience, it's the strength, especially the mental strength, that sort of attracted me to Slovo, and it's made me sort of see it as a home. And when Zuki sort of brought her idea to Lisa and I, there was literally no hesitation, because when you see all of what is obtainable there and you have this desire to create something better, why not? Why don't you support it? And so that's exactly why we're doing what we're calling the Trash to Treasure project. Zuki's idea, actually, which is very important for us, that we point out how much it is Slovo owned, how much it is that someone from there sort of decided this is what she wants to do in order to change the situation. There's a young man, if you're sort of watching this from a desktop, there's a young man who's, you know, passed right now. He's sitting beside me right now. Yamzo. Hello, Yamzo.
Yes, sir.
Yamzo's a brilliant artist.
Joe Slovo is. Thank you.
You don't say that enough. But yeah, Yamzo's a brilliant artist.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So Joe Slovo has been a home to many people, and has been a home to like people from generation to generation. And it was actually started by about 5 women that that found the land was just like a forest. You know what I'm saying? It had like bushes. It was like crazy. And they came and they were like, so it was owned by a white man, and they came and they just put their shacks there. And the white man came and he just sold it to them for like a really low price. And that's when it all started. Families grew, the community grew, and now it's a very big community. It's a very big township that's basically family, because you walk down the streets and you see people greeting each other, hugging each other, and it's so much fun. Like everyone, it's kind of like no one sees or no one experiences the troubles and the struggles people go through every day, but everyone just leaves those at home and they walk down the streets, and it's just an amazing vibe. There's some music, there are people just smiling and being happy, and so it's a very nice home, and it's a very beautiful place that's developing. And there are a lot of programs that have started that are helping with the youth, and they're helping the elderly.
Okay, I think we might have lost Yamzo for a bit, or is it from my end? Did we lose Yamzo?
I think we did, yeah.
Okay. We're just going to segue straight into into what we're going to do next. Yamzo is actually still going to speak. Hopefully the network sort of reconnects there. I'm going to introduce another person who's also sort of going to give us a feel of the community and what it is like. But she's not going to do a treatise. She's not going to explain to or talk to us. She's going to read us a poem. I'm introducing Babawa Tatiana, who's an N for Globetrotter and someone I'm very, very glad to have met recently. I still feel like I should have met her a long time ago. But hello, Babawa, welcome.
Hello, I'm Babalwa Tatiana, as Buchi has already said. I am from South Africa, and I will just read this short poem. I know love. I'm from the warm hands of a Xhosa woman that dripped blood yet still built a magnificent person in me. I'm from the presence of a father who ran with open wounds under his bare feet, stood on burning coal to claim me life. I'm from neighbors whose doors remain open. I'm from a place where family is everyone you get the privilege to say greetings to. I'm from a township where everything is a toy, from rocks, mud, wood, cardboard, wire, broken glass plates and cups. I do not wish I had screens to glue my eyes on to help keep me occupied all day. I do not know boredom. I know creativity. And yes, we did not bother to write letters to Santa Claus asking for toys. He would never look down to hear our desperate voices, so we watched the empty sky instead. Santa only stops at white people's houses, my brother would always say. I'm of a township where hope for salvation lingers in the eyes of a child, like a lifeless leaf refusing to fall, but there is no place like home. The fruitfulness in their voices as they wrap their tongues around your name and remind you you are more than broken plans. Broken systems could never build you. No, not the same way your community will breathe life into the structure of your home after unexpected storms. Not in the same way they will breathe life at the meeting of your bones when exhaustion hits you. I'm from a place where people are not afraid to kneel in order to lift you up. I'm from Slovo. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, thank you very, very much. And And for someone who has been to Slovo, I mean, I can confirm that this is exactly what I felt. Incidentally, this is the first time I'm listening to this poem, but everyone who's sort of heard it before tell me how powerful it is. And I'm absolutely not surprised that it is this powerful. And so I'm sure many of you will be wondering, okay, so they're talking about Slovo and the community. What exactly is the intention? What is the end goal? And this is the end goal. While we wait for Zuki and Yamzo to come back, I'll just tell us a bit about what we're trying to do in Slovo. Now, when we were in Slovo in January, it was very easy to try to look for, try to give a handout, try to very quickly try to step things up, but we thought it would be smarter to sort of look for a strategic and more structural approach towards improving the lot of the people in Slovo. And when Zuki came with the idea of a trash to treasure project, which we've incidentally shot into TTT, interestingly, it just makes it a better mouthful for us recently. So Zuki brought the idea of a trash to treasure project, one that sort of improves not only the environment of Joe Slovo as a community, but also improves the situation, the standard of living for inhabitants and residents of Slovo. And her vision was simply creating a grocery store for which the only currency to purchase food, and largely fresh food and literally just groceries from it, would be vouchers that you earn based on trash that you bring in. So we're creating a grocery store that people redeem, that people buy food from, but you're only using vouchers dependent on the trash that they bring in. And that's just one section of the project. The second section of the project is to also use that as a source of income for people who are resident there. Teaching recycling, teaching upcycling, teaching how to make furniture, even create an entire community center in the community of Slovo. That's actually our overarching intention in that community, to create a structure that stands the test of time, that not only becomes a way for which people redeem food, redeem their groceries, redeem sort of a better standard of life, but we also want to create something that becomes a reference to the community. And we want the fact that it's been pushed and piloted by Zukiswa, Yamzo, even Babawa, hopefully if she go back to South Africa after her studies, we want something that's local, something that's homegrown, something that's owned by the community. So that's the entire idea. You can see from the video that's been playing right now from the N4 admin handle, you can see the trash literally littered around. I wish Zuki was here because she's the one actually taking this photo. This is the space that has been allocated to the Trash to Treasure project. I'm deliberately not saying a space that's been allocated to Narrative 4 because the project is a Slovo project. We're simply just helping out. And this is the space that we intend to turn into something else. So, but the trash that we intend to reclaim is not just the trash here, it's the trash that litters the entire community. And we will be working in connection with other with recycling companies, with upcycling companies. We'll also be bringing in experts. Lisa and I met labels in Soweto who actually are working, who has actually created, well, not a Trash to Treasure project, but created an entire lodging and bar. If you do ever get to Soweto, you should go there. And these are some of the inspirations that we intend to do. We intend to show that, well, the situation that people have found themselves in there should not entirely determine the way and manner their lives should go in that community. And that's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing the Trash to Treasure project. And that's the entire intention, which is why we're sort of putting out links that you can, support, you can, sort of come into, because that's what we're trying to do in Joe Slovo community. Now, this project will not be run from the US or from Nigeria. It will be run by Zukiswa Allah, who is in Slovo. That's the entire Trash to Treasure project. So just think of, we're going to create containers, 40-foot containers, multiple of them in that particular space, and then we're going to exchange food for groceries and then also teach upcycling. The idea is to show that something different can sort of come out of that situation that people have found themselves in Slovo. That's the entirety of the Trash to Treasure project. Okay, so that's my spiel, standing in for Zuki, who had to actually step out. So just to also explain that it's not entirely just about Slovo. One of the reasons I'm very much attracted to this is how easy it would be to replicate this. I'm from Nigeria, and like I said in the beginning, for those who just joined us, Slovo community is not much different from many of the communities in and around Nigeria. If you know about Nigeria a lot, you know about the Maroko community, you know about Otodobame. There are a number of communities that sort of share similarities with Slovo. And so we believe that if we can get, when we get the Trash to Treasure project right in Joe Slovo, we will then be able to replicate this in different parts of the world, not just in South Africa, not just in Nigeria or in Sierra Leone, which is Ishmael's home country, but even in the US. I mean, Lisa and I were talking about the South Bronx, we're talking about the West Bank. These are places where we think that if we can execute this project properly, we will be able to replicate it globally. Again, I might be making this spill or just making this speech, but it literally is Zukiswa's idea, and we're simply supporting her to sort of get it done. That's the Trash to Treasure project currently. And just to give me a bit of a breather, to take a break, I will be turning to Babawa now before I come back to Ishmael to tell us about another part of our work and sort of how it can impact the community that she's from. Babawa is an N4 Global Ambassador. I'm interested in that because, I just joined, so I don't know much about that. Tell us, Babawa.
All right, so about 2 years ago, one of the student ambassadors of Narrative for, Katie, came up with the idea of forming the Globetrotters, which is basically the student council for Narrative for. And the main idea for this platform was to give students that are part of Narrative for those the leadership positions that Narrative for has to offer. And I have been part of the Globetrotters for the past 2 years now. And what we do basically is form different projects for where we live at the moment for our communities. We plan story exchanges, we introduce Narrative for to our communities and stuff. And I have worked with Narrative for way too many years. I don't even know how many now. And I've created many story exchange projects. I started in high school. I've done a story exchange in my high school for stereotypes, like anything. And so going on forward with the Globetrotters, you come up with the idea and you have everyone that's on the student council that can help you make it happen. And we also reach out to the staff, and we meet once a month to just check in to see how everybody's doing, how are the projects going. And so I have other ideas go to bring Narrative for to South Africa, but that's not what we're going to talk about now. And yeah, that's just being a Globetrotter gives you not only the leadership position to come up with a project, meet with people like you, talk about Narrative for with other people who don't know anything about Narrative for, but it also gives you the chance to build relationships with those people that you're working with. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We do have some questions already in the Q&A box, but this section now of the conversation is where we intend to take in your questions. I, Ishmael Babawa, everybody you've sent questions to, we will attempt to answer as much as is possible. I am aware that Zukiswa and Yamzo are trying to reconnect, and when they do, we will definitely also get them to share their perspectives and what they think this project will bring to their community. The first question is from Abby Watson. She says, is there a way we can get a copy of the poem that Babawa wrote? Babawa, a lot of people are asking this question also in the chat box. So I'm pretty sure this is up to you now. Shoot.
Don't worry, you'll get it. Don't worry, it's coming.
Okay.
All right.
Another person said, yes, Ishmael.
No, I was just gonna say for Babalwa, I think I'm not sure if the poem is published, but if not, I think we should find a way to publish it so that way people can gain access to it through that. So you retain the rights to it as well, instead of just sending it to everybody.
It's not.
That would just be my comment.
Okay. All right, so we've got a number of questions. I will definitely be bringing Ishmael in to talk about how his book sort of relates to this project and his vision for Narrative 4 on the continent. I mean, for those who don't know, we've only just started our Narrative 4 African expansion. We officially kicked off in May, and I'll be also answering. I've got Ishmael here, but let's see if we can take as many of the questions on this project in the Q&A as is possible. Another person, an anonymous attendee says, do they bring in actual trash? Is this a cleanup effort? I can answer for Zuki. So when I say yes, they will dash out in order to give weight to more recyclable items, but also ensure that even the items that we think cannot be recycled or we cannot recycle or upcycle are brought in as well, such that people don't cherry pick and still leave trash. So we want the trash to come in irrespective of the quality, because we want the environment to be cleaner. And then we also want people to benefit from having, not just having a better environment, but also from bringing in the trash. So it's a bit of an outreach, but we still get some social good as well. So that's, I hope that answers that particular question. If not, you can still resend maybe a different version. Where do the groceries come from? Donated? Well, yes, we are going to be donating it. We're going to be donating the groceries. Narrative 4 is taking the lead on this. We are sort of raising the funding for it. But another reason for this webinar is such that we can raise funding to ensure that we support it as much as is possible. We do have an aim, though. We do have an aim that in the next 2 to 3 years, we want the project to entirely fund itself in terms of salaries, in terms of buying the groceries. And so we definitely have designed the project for that. But for the initial offtake, we definitely would love as much support as is possible. So just check the chat. You would have links as to how you can support the Trash to Treasure project in Slovo. I will come back to other questions, but there is a question from an anonymous attendee who's asking Ishmael, can Ishmael talk about the power of people in Slovo bringing the story around the world? You're the writer, Ishmael, so it's a very apt question for you.
Well, I think maybe Babalwa will also help me to answer the question as well. She's from Slovo. I lived in South Africa years ago, but not in Slovo, but I'm very aware of the township life and things like that. But I wanted to, before answering that question, I wanted to comment on something that somebody says, how would the trash be brought? Is it a clean effort? And I think Buchi answered the question, but another part of it from my understanding of the project is also that certain trash would be recycled to be used as art projects in the community. For example, people use old tires to make benches and things. So it's not just about throwing away trash, it's also about using certain trash that can be reused, repurposed for the community's benefit, so that there's also a creativity element added. But most importantly, I think why for me this project is very important, which as Buchi said, similar situations are in my country, is that often when you go into township, we've seen it over and over again where people just bring in an idea and impose it on the community. And it usually does not work. We've seen it over and over again. I work for the United Nations, and we've seen that. But when people take ownership of their own community and do things the way they see fit, and then you actually support it and you support them, it works. And why that works is because you give people dignity, their dignity back, of their intelligence back. You give them the possession of their stories back, as opposed to an imposition of how you want them to be, how you want them to feel, right? Because we also know in this environment, sometimes when people have cash in their hands, it can lead to mismanagement of things, and they can use it for things that are not beneficial to their lives. When you bring trash and then you get something that's viable for your life, food, or maybe you get some funding to buy books, or books are bought for you, or whatever it is that you need, you begin to see not only how you're useful to help yourself, but also how you can use your resources to benefit yourself positively in your community. So this is kind of what the project is about from my understanding. And yeah, so for the communities and the stories, is that I've always been a believer that when you give people, which is what Narrative 4 does, when you give people the power to own their own narratives fully, and to talk about whether their madness, their dreams, their future. When they own that space, possibilities happen, right? So when everything that I've written has always been from that point of view. How do you give back people their own dignity, their own stories in their own lives through stories, which is the most powerful weapon. From there comes the practicality of things that you need to do to actually uplift them. But people already have these desires. People have, in my book, for example, Little Family, you find a family that, for 5, that have sort of created a bond, which is why I really love Babawa's poem. She mentioned that this is a place where everybody that you say hello to, you greet, becomes family. The question of family is much more expansive in the African context than it is elsewhere. And that's why when projects like this work, there's a, you know, everybody that you meet, you know, when I was growing up, when I went to Sierra Leone years back with some friends of mine from the United States, and they were very confused when I went to my village, because everybody who we saw said, hey, our brother is back. And they said, well, how many brothers do you have or sisters do you have? Everybody calls you a brother or sister, is it, you know? So because the idea that everybody, the Ubuntu concept is very much strong in the African community. Again, going back to Babawa's point, which is that people will kneel down to uplift you. And obviously these things are disrupted when there's struggle. But people will still leave their struggles so much. She said again, to help. But when there's a little bit of uplifting, particularly giving people their dignity back through their own stories, you see miracles that happen. But I would like Babawa to chime in on this as well. It's specifically from Joseph.
Wait, can you repeat the question again? The
question is, you know, how can the power of people in Slovo, you know, how can we bring this story around the world?
Mm-hmm. This story can easily go into Joe Slovo, because just growing up in Joe Slovo, there were always stories told. You meet someone, like you go to the store and you see someone over there that knows you, and they, you know, you just say hi, and the next thing you know, you're talking about what's happening in their house, like what's happening at their home. So this story could be easily brought into Joe Slovo by creating a project, maybe, you know, where people could just come together instead of just talking to someone out there, just in small talk, come together and share their own stories. And, you know, just like how Narrative 4 usually does when putting people together.
To add to that, I'm saying that we've already seen the example how this can be brought. We have a Balwa here who just read us a brilliant poem. She's from that community. So we see the brilliance of that community. We have Zuki and Yogala, who was just with us, who were talking about their community. So I think what is truly important is, and what Narrative 4 does, is just to take people from that community and showcase them to the world. So you see the beauty, the intelligence, the strength, and the resilience that already exists in this community. And so I think that's how we're going to bring it to the world, through the platform of Narrative 4, to showcase people's intelligence, not just their struggles, so that the story is complete. You know, it's not just one side. Often there's a desire to only show the struggle, but not the context of the struggle itself, which is more beautiful in a way, because living within that, the process of living within any situation and how people deal with it, that's where humanity lies. That's where the strength of humanity lies. That's where we meet each other. That's where you see and appreciate things that you have, and perhaps can become an ally to the people that are less fortunate than you. That's only the reason they are less fortunate than you, but they can give you intelligence. They can offer you other things in your life that you don't have. So that's how I think we want to bring this to the world.
Okay, thank you very much, Ishmael and Babawa. There's absolutely nothing I have to add, except to plug in the fact that we are actually in the process of expanding our story exchange and facilitator processes in and around the continent. So we definitely will be equipping, we will be running story exchanges. We'll be running cross-continent story exchanges in the nearest future, from the continent and outward. So there is a lot that we're going to do with this in terms of how we harness the story and the communication. But thank you very much for that particular question. Tom Lemons asked what I think is a very, very important question, and I'm very grateful for it. He says, how are women empowered through this project, disrupting the patriarchal mindset? he can see how the gathering of trash can become the work of women and girls. I think it's a very brilliant aspect to put in. And I think we also have to be a bit careful in terms of if we make that the responsibility of women and girls, we have to also be very careful in terms of the burdens that we might be placing on them in order to sort of make them breadwinners or income bringers, because for many families in these communities, it might be the only way that they get healthy groceries in. And while I can see the benefit of, all of the of women being responsible for that, I think it might be easier to sort of let it germinate organically instead of being an additional burden. But it is very important that we begin to disrupt these systems, especially in my continent. The fact that Zukiswa is a woman and who's very definitely going to be in charge of this project is in itself a very symbolic gesture. Also because Zukiswa has been running a circle of, for young women for a number of years now in her work for Artwork for Youth. She's been sort of creating a safe space for young women, and her leading this project is a very prime example and very prime way for her to sort of step in on it. And also we are in conversation as to how we can expand the work, sort of as how Narrative 4 can sort of expand that work that she does in terms of the spaces that she provides for the young girls, the support that she brings in for them, the stories that she told me in and around when I was in Slovo about some of the things. I'm pretty sure that we all know that the femicide rates, the sexual violence rates in Southern Africa are possibly some of the worst in the world and only rivaling some parts of the Middle East. So I can assure you, Tom, that this is also part of the conversation that we're having in terms of the Trash to Treasure project. It's not going to be a silver bullet that's going to solve all the evils, all the wrong things in the community, but we definitely will try to incorporate as much as is possible into this. Don asked the question as to how we can support the work of Zuki and the team. Well, just look at the chart. I'm pretty sure that Amira and Alondra, who've been doing amazing, sort of responding to every statement. We give you links as to how you can support the entire team. I'm also glad that you're saying Zuki and the team, because we recognize that it is really that it is Zuki and her team that will be executing this. I think we do have a few minutes more, so we can take a few more questions if you send them in. An anonymous attendee says, how can this project further help the youth in this community? But Bawa, you're a youth, so yes. I think I sort of passed the youth age a few years ago, even if I don't look it. Ishmael has passed a long time ago, so you're the only youth here. So how do you think this project will sort of help your constituency?
This project will definitely help the youth on a higher level, because I know a lot of my friends from South Africa, many of them are unemployed, many of them dropped out of school, for many different reasons. And so this project will give them something to do, because some people are still in bed, not even knowing what they're going to do when they wake up. So this project is going to give them time. It's going to give them something to fill their time with. It's also going to give them, it'll motivate them to also, so when they use their time to go collect the trash and everything like that, when they bring it there, whatever, it's going to bring their stress levels down, because many of them are probably, are usually worrying about what they're going to eat, how are they going to turn on the lights or anything like that. So this project will definitely help, and it can also help with the drug use, because many people in my township suffer with drug use, both alcohol and drugs. And so this can help, because from my understanding, many of the people that I know who end up using drugs is because they have lost hope, and they just don't see where their life is going. So this project can also help bring back, bring options for them. It could be an easy first step to just getting up and do something. And then from there, they can build their lives.
Thank you very, very much, Babawa.
I may add
it's interesting as to how. Yes, you can add, Ishmael.
Yes, I'm not a youth anymore, thank you. But I think I may add something. What I was trying to say is that I think one of the most important way to make somebody to bring somebody back in the community, particularly in places where there's a lot of trauma, maybe drug usage, is to make them feel that they're useful to the community in whatever small way. And that kind of changes the whole way they perceive themselves in the community and what their role is in that community. I've seen a similarity in Sierra Leone. I think this project, that's what it will do. It will make people start to think how useful they can be to the community, and therefore do not waste time to be destructive to themselves and the community anymore. That in itself is a win. You know, when you wake up inside environments like this where you don't have anything going on for your life, and you know that, listen, I'm cleaning my community and I'm able to get something out of that. I will walk down the same streets, will be different now. But also if I take this trash to some other place, I will learn how to recreate certain things. Some people will learn skill set by, you know, maybe they'll be attached to somebody who creates, who uses tires or broken wood to make furniture. They learn that. They begin to see creatively how their community can turn another direction. And I think that in itself, it's remarkable.
All right, thank you very much, Ishmael. I think as Zuki and Yamzo are back in.
Hey,
welcome back, guys. I come to you. I have good news for everyone who's present here. So one of my, and I'm pretty sure one of your favorite musicians globally, Sting, has just signed on to join us for an afternoon of music and literature. And we also have another person that I'm sure Babawa, Zuki, and Yamzo will be happy to hear. We're working to confirm that Vusi Malesela, that's the voice of South Africa, will also join on that day. That part's not confirmed, but it's very likely that he will be there on that day. So imagine an evening of Sting and Vusi. It's going to be brilliant. And it's on August the 30th at 4 p.m. EST, which interestingly is 9 p.m. my time. But I pretty much will stay up. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely will stay up, and we will confirm all of these. And these are artists that are, you know, sort of part of the family, and definitely will be part of, because it's very important that you don't miss it. See if we can take these questions very, very quickly, guys. We only have a few minutes. I think we can, you know, stop taking any more questions. Column asked questions as to how we can replicate this in places like Ireland or in my hometown. Yes. To his last question, can we make trash to treasure projects around the world? Very, very definitely we can make them, because like you said, you know, it's connected everywhere. There's lack everywhere. There are communities that sort of need not just the financial or the physical help, but also sort of the psychological uplift that the Trash to Treasure project brings. There's a question for Ishmael, but before a minute each, tell us what you think this project will bring. How do you feel about this project? What do you think you'll bring to the community? I will take Zuki first. Since Zuki, you can go.
Can you please bring the question again, Buji?
Yeah, how do you think this project is going to benefit your community? What do you see in Slovo? Yeah.
Definitely. I think more than anything, this is gonna affirm our community in terms of them or us continuing to dream and not giving up in our dreams. This will help us in terms of those that are unemployed, that it will guarantee that you don't have to go to bed without food as long as you are willing to put effort, because there's trash laying all over the streets. And if you claim you are unemployed and you don't have something to put in your stomach on that day, the least you can do is to get up and then try and put an effort by picking up the litter. And then it doesn't only end there on you exchanging your litter for the groceries and being able to put food on the table, but then we also plan on having workshops to first educate the community that it's not just putting food on the table by exchanging litter, but then we are doing something good to the community and the environment itself, that us as the people, we benefit in the long run. As well, the community will benefit in terms of the workshops that will be given. Whereas we turn now the treasure, let's take tires, for example, they can be turned into furniture. there will be groups that will be selected rotationally to come and take part in those workshops. So there's education, we are instilling hope, we are instilling dignity in terms of people don't have to just beg for food. People should know that they possess the will and they should have just the courage now to get up and start doing something. So I think those are one of the few benefits that the community will get for this. But one of my highlights in all of those is the ability to continue dreaming, you know?
Yeah, and one other thing, one other way this is going to help is is people are going to be coming out of their homes to go out and collect the trash and just get some food, and that comes with building relationships and building friendships in the community. And a lot, and I've experienced this because a lot of people, we have to go out our homes to actually, you know, smile a little, because at home there are so many problems and troubles that you have to think about, whether you're going to eat, whether there's going to be light, you know, at night, and whether like you're safe or not, because not a lot of houses are secure, and a lot of, like, no one has anyone to talk to at home. And so this is going to help people who don't feel, who have a certain feeling when they're at home that's bad, and they're going to get a chance to go out and create more friends and just not think about whatever is going on, and actually have a stable mind and a chance to solve a little bit of their problems and just alleviate their the problems and the troubles they have on their shoulders, you know.
Thank you very, very much, Yamzu. Thank you. Just before we round up, we'll just take a couple more questions that have been put in the box, just so we can take everyone. I will come back to Ishmael in terms of the little family question that would sort of help us to round up. But there's a question from an anonymous attendee that says, to what extent do you plan to use the trash collected in building furniture, buildings, or clothing? Or is the project more focused on the cleaning and creating of artistic pieces? Zuki, I think you can take this for maybe a minute.
Yeah. So part of, definitely we're going to select the usable trash from whatever that is being recycled, but then people should also know that there are trucks that come and pick up the recyclables where you could exchange those for a few rands. So for anything that is not usable, it will be taken back to the big recyclers in town. They're going to come and pick it up, and then we will exchange that for however much we can get out of that, which we hope that the community will start saving that amount until we know that we are in a place whereby Narrative 4 says our support ends here. And then by that time, that Narrative 4 is suggesting that we are able to support and sustain the project as a community using those funds that we've been saving from the trash that we've been taking in to the big trash traders in town. I hope I am clear.
Yes, thank you very much, Zuki. There's a lot that we're going to be doing with this. Even I'm very excited. And we also have no limits in our thinking. Anything that we think will help, as long as we can, we definitely will do it. So one final question from Ishmael before we sign off. Ishmael, in Little Family, according to Leah, I don't know if that's a he or she, the young people drank alcohol and smoked marijuana. Is this just a way for people in great stress to relax? Or do you think it's an indication of a larger problem of substance abuse in the young people? I'm pretty sure this also relates with sort of what Babawa and Co have talked about.
Well, I think people usually sort of use whatever substance that's available to them to cope with stress. I think what I've observed in various African countries and in communities that are struggling, that in urban environments, it's very difficult to survive. You need money. That's just how the world kind of operates. And that brings about a psychological stress on a lot of people who don't have access. to funds to be able to take care of their lives. And also what urban environments do is that they shatter community, a sense of community, because every day a lot of people have to leave to go and try to fend for themselves outside of that environment. So the community aspect is missing. So for people to cope with these kinds of things, often they somewhat give up by relying on drugs as a way to escape an impossible situation, right? But they can't. But then it becomes a pattern. You get addicted to it as a way to not deal with your situation because maybe you don't have the possibilities, which is again bringing it back to what we're doing. Why now, as Azuki said, if you wake up and go clean your community, you have something to eat. I think you would be more active to do that. But before, where that possibility did not exist, you're more likely, if you have a few rands in your pocket or a few leons or whatever currency you have in whatever country, you would just buy whatever can try to take you away from this one day. So it's not a question of substance abuse. I think it's a coping mechanism because you don't know what else to do to deal with the situation that you're faced with. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Ishmael. Incidentally, there is another project that we're building for Narrative for Africa that will not just begin in one community. It's actually going to cut across the entire continent that will attempt to address a number of these issues, especially for young people. And I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope you all are as well. But of course, you don't know what it is, but you will know very soon, very, very soon enough. We don't have any more time, but I will just very quickly answer this question from the anonymous attendee who says, who will be facilitating the workshops? Will they be members of the community or people coming in from different fields? Well, yes, both of them. The members of the community who can facilitate the workshops in terms of upcycling, recycling, or even our usual trainers, train the trainer models. Zuki is a master practitioner, so she will be even training facilitators to run story exchanges in Slovo. And then we will bring in as many facilitators as we can, as long as we find them and we think we can, we'll bring them in. We can then train first, people who would then train other people in the community. So this is where we will sign off, but we don't leave yet. I'd like to sort of thank everyone who's on the panel. Ishmael, well, not much to say about him. He's my brother, he's my friend. I'm really, really grateful, Ishmael, that you're here today. And thank you, Babawa. Thank you, Zukiswa and Yamzo. I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing very soon in Slovo. We'll be leaving you with a poem. Well, not just the poem, we're giving you the same video right now, but we'll be doing that with a poem voiceover by someone incidentally from Slovo. I'm not going to hint it out, I won't give you too much. I'm just going to allow you to watch the video. Thank you very much to Alondra, to Amira, Felice, Lisa, and Grace. Grace, over to you now.
Thank you. If you can everyone can just stop their video and audio, that would be great.
All right, so let's all stop our video now, dear. Thank you.
People are the kind. My people are the kind that paint on blank canvases, breathe life into empty spaces, make new out of the old. We sing life into forgotten flowers, weave plastic into new fashion bags. My people will preach dreams back into your slumber. Having learned from the confines of a single mother's womb that anything is possible, my people never give up on anything. Our past is soiled by images of dispossession, land stolen, our homes destroyed, families separated, our kindness challenged, our faith tested, and ultimately our dignity snatched away. We are the ones that should have died in the storm. We should have been deleted by the hurricane, but the hidden phoenixes within refused to burn and die in the inferno. Scorched wings flapping for dear life, we rose again to pen a story of survival, a story of reclaiming and rebuilding again with what we had left. A brick here, a nail there, sheets of iron coming together to form the four walls that will shelter new babies and nurture them into proud adults with fond memories of growing up in a community of hopeful survivors. My people always find a way. In an open field, they made hope. In their minds, an idea was conceived. To take a nameless piece of land and give it a name, give it character and meaning, thereby transforming this piece of nothing into something we could be proud of. My people are miracle workers, natural strategists that they are. My wise people never paid much mind to the English scholar who dared question the importance of a name, knowing very well the power that lies hidden in words and names. To us, a name is a summary of all the dreams and desires wished to manifest upon the thing being gifted with a name. A name morphs a lifeless object into a recognizable and respectable entity, one deserving of a nurturing and protective eye and hand hovering over it. And so to us, nothing is without a name. That nameless piece of land we turned into home, that too has a name. One chosen carefully and deliberately to instill a sense of pride among those who wear it. So, if you find yourself wondering about my kin's fighting spirit, our sense of community, carrying the weight of each other's goals, standing up, raising our voices for what is right, even if it makes us unpopular among our peers. If you are ever curious about our fearlessness in taking charge and leading ourselves out of unfavorable conditions and into the utopia of our wildest dreams, you need only ask about Joe Slovo, and all your questions will be answered.